Hi, welcome to Your Future, Your Finances. I'm your host, Brian Kuhn. Have you seen the solar panels on roofs of your neighbors or the commercials on TV and wondered whether that would be a good idea for you? Well, today I'm talking to Rick Peters of the solar energy industry, and we're going to learn a little bit about your options as a consumer or even as a business owner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's start. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure.
How you got into the business.
Well, I'm president of a company called Solar Energy Services, and I got into the business almost 8 years ago now. I had been interested in solar for a long time and decided to make the jump. And so I've been involved with the policy world as well. I'm a board member of the Maryland, D.C., Virginia Regional Solar Trade Association and past president.
And it's exploding in growth. It seems that way anyway. You see them on people's roofs and so forth. So what's happening over time that's caused that?
Well, I think it's really been a combination of things. It's been policy, consumer demand, and scale. And those are certainly linked and related. Policy has allowed the economics to improve enough where consumers are interested and ready to go forward, and they've responded. And in turn, there's more competition out there, so prices have come down for that reason. And the manufacturing economies of scale have really benefited in terms of reducing the price of solar. We're about 30% of what solar cost when I got into the business.
30%?
Yeah.
Wow, that's come down a lot.
Sure has.
So let's say you're an individual homeowner and looking into this. How do you do it, and what are the different ways that you can do it?
Well, you can certainly. What I like to put it into two categories. You can buy the solar or you can rent the solar. Let's start with a residential perspective. So folks can pay with cash out of their savings, or they can take out a home equity line of credit and deduct the interest, or they can get a loan from the installer. Most of the installers now offer a loan so that you can have a no cash out of pocket approach, where by the end of the loan you own the system and your economic return for the investment goes up drastically at that point. The other approach, and this has become very popular, is what's called the third-party owned model. So some of these big national companies will basically install the system for free, and they own and maintain the system, and they charge you for the energy that it produces, or they charge you a lease payment. Those are the two different common approaches. And that way, you can get in with no money down and achieve some savings right out of the gate. Those are typically 20-year contracts.
There's no money down, though, so that probably implies that's never free. There's some con or disadvantage to doing it that way.
Well, I would say from my perspective, the major disadvantage is that you're giving up all the incentives. That third-party owner gets in most cases, all of the economic incentives that are coming from the feds, the state, and even the county in a lot of cases. So that's one disadvantage. But on the other hand, if you don't have tax liability and you can't leverage the 30% federal tax credit, and it's a credit, not a deduction, it's 30% of the cost of the system comes off of your taxes, and you can spread that out over a few years. But some folks on fixed incomes might not have that tax liability. So for them, it might be advantageous to go with a third-party owned system, since the third party can leverage the federal tax credits.
So if you don't do that, then you're buying it, like you said. So is there a range of costs, or like an A plan, a B plan?
Well, right now the average size system for our Maryland residents is about 8 kilowatts, and so that's typically in the $24,000 to $26,000 range before incentives, and then typically more than half of that comes back to you in incentives. Some right away, some over time, and that's sort of a median price. There's sometimes you can pay a premium for a higher aesthetic component to the panels. There's some features and benefits in some of the power electronics that can be charged a premium for. But for the most part, there's not a lot of variation in the pricing.
And then once you have it, does it get better over time, or can you upgrade it over time?
Well, most systems are not designed for that kind of approach. And I think oftentimes folks think, well, I'm going to wait until the technology gets better. But what I often remind them is that when the technology gets better, the incentives will likely be much less. And that's what we've seen over the last 7 or 8 years that I've been in the business. the economic return for the homeowner is similar to what it was 7 or 8 years ago, although we've seen significant cost reductions. But in turn, the incentives have declined as well.
Mm-hmm. And then let's say you're a business owner, you have a building. How does it work for them?
It's very similar. They get a lot of the same incentives that a residence gets, with an additional one, and that's the accelerated depreciation. Most assets of this kind would have a 20-year depreciation schedule, but solar benefits from the 5-year MACRS depreciation schedule. So that's another economic benefit that business owners get.
Mm-hmm. And they have a building. Do the panels, they work the same way? Do they go like on the entire roof, or can you put them on the side? Like, I recall when I was looking into this, there was restrictions on how much of the roof they could cover. Is that improving so that you can get more capacity for your business or your home?
Yes and no. Certainly the efficiency of the panels continues to improve, not drastically, but incrementally, maybe a little less than 1% a year in terms of improved efficiency that we've seen recently. So that allows you to get more watts on the roof, if you will. But there's also the other side of it is code and permitting and things are evolving as well. And not every county, Maryland's got home rules, so not every county does it the same way, so that can present some challenges. And you may be alluding to the restrictions around the fire code. In some counties, it's a little bit more strict than others, which limits, basically it's about walkways and access for the firemen. So those things have to be considered. We typically use the south roof or an east or west roof or something in that range. It's rare that we put panels on the north roof, but as the prices have come down and efficiency's gotten better, that is starting to happen more. Not on a steep north roof, but on a north roof that doesn't have a deep pitch. You can get good economics with solar. Mm-hmm.